At the end of that selection, the guards separated the women and children from the men. They ordered Mother, Shmuel, and me into the great synagogue, where we witnessed inhuman scenes. It was a horrible atmosphere in the synagogue. Our lives were not worth a penny. Meanwhile, night fell, enveloping us in complete blackness. Hundreds of women and children were packed into the cramped synagogue hall. We were gripped by pure terror and fear for our lives. Late that night, the synagogue door opened. Two Gestapo men lit a lamp, came inside, and stood in the doorway facing each other, leaving a narrow passage between them. In a thunderous voice, one declared, "I will now read a list of names. Everyone whose name I read will get up immediately, Schnell, Schnell, and go home." He began to read the list of those released. The first name he read was Lau, Chaya, my mother. She did not get up because she was waiting for him to read the names of her two sons, Shmuel and Israel, so that we could leave together. The German finished reading the list of names, but my brother and I were not on it. Everyone realized that those whose names he had not read would remain inside, their fate sealed. As order and discipline was second nature to the Germans, one shouted, "One of the peoples whose names I called did not go out." Then they both made an exact count of all those who had left and checked their lists. One person had not left. My mother, her healthy maternal instinct aroused, scrutinized the narrow passage between the two guards at the door. She planned our moves quickly and precisely. She grabbed me with one hand and Shmuel with the other. "Come here," she ordered. We jumped to her. We didn't need to be told that we must be completely silent, and more important, keep as close as possible to Mother. The three of us had to meld together as one body. She planned to smuggle us both out under cover of darkness as if we were part of her body. To keep the Germans from closing the exit, she shouted toward the door, "I'm coming, I'm coming." Walking sideways as one body, we went out the door. But as close together as we might be, our group of three could not possibly pass through the narrow opening the Germans had left. They stood so that only one person at a time could pass through. I went out first. Mother was close behind me and Shmuel behind her. But one German noticed a bit more movement than expected. Facing us, he raised both his arms together, palms facing the floor, and swung them down with all his might, one to the left and one to the right. Shmuel, who was on the left side, fell to the synagogue floor and had to go back inside. On the right side were my mother and myself. The force of the blow hurled us into a puddle in front of the synagogue. We were outside, but Shmuel remained inside. The two of us were saved, but we were separated from Shmuel, whom we never saw again. Later we learned that he was sent to Treblinka the same day. Mother understood there was nothing she could do to bring back her son. The two of us walked in heavy silence to our home at 21 Pilsudski Street near the synagogue. Our single-story, 7-room house was empty. Naftali was working in the ghetto glass factory. Shmuel remained in the synagogue with those sentenced to death, and the Gestapo was holding father. Only Mother and I remained alone. Mother tried to get me to sleep, but I could not close my eyes. The images of the day raced through my brain and gave me no rest. Those words were written by the former chief rabbi of the state of Israel, the person who, perhaps some of you, heard his words as he addressed this past summer close to 90,000 people at the Siyum HaShas, Rabbi Yisrael Meir Lau. He survived, his two brothers and his father did not, and his mother later perished as well in the Holocaust. This is just one miracle. So many miracles that if you read his biography, his autobiography, so many miracles that he merited to be delivered from that horrible inferno. What struck me about this story was a 1-second instantaneous decision made by his mother to smuggle him out of that shul, out of that synagogue,
under the eyes of all the Germans there, what happened as a result of that split-second decision. And later on in Buchenwald, how he was saved by somebody else. And time and again, one decision led to a person becoming a Rav, one of the most respected rabbis in Israel, who was mekarev people, who inspired people, who helped people, who continues to help and inspire people. And it was one of the most outstanding speeches at that incredible gathering that happened this past summer. One decision that Mom made in a split second changed the complete course of history. To smuggle one of her children out, trying to smuggle both, but only succeeded in smuggling one. Chazal say, gentlemen, yesh koneh olamo b'sha'a achas. There are some people who acquire their entire world in one moment. And we tend to assume what that means is that sometimes you could become a tremendous tzaddik in 1 second. But I believe that Gemara has more meaning and a deeper meaning. Every moment that a person makes a decision affects the next minute, the next hour, the next day, the next month, sometimes the next year or the next many years. Because every decision you make has consequences. And then you live with those consequences, then you have to make more decisions. Every time a person makes a decision, he's literally acquiring for himself a new world. The decision to be one way. The decision one day to try to take davening seriously. The decision to try to do something one shouldn't do. The decision one time to try to look at something that he shouldn't look at. The decision one time, b'sha'ah achas, one moment of a decision that a person has, to make a decision to spend the summer one way. Yesh kona olamo b'sha'ah achas. The decisions that we have in life, thank God for most of us, it's not the question of am I going to save my kid's life or not? Am I going to save my brother's life or not? Am I going to save my parents' life? For most of us, it's a decision of what's my future going to look like? But one thing is clear. Every decision that we make, every time we walk into the classroom in the morning and we make a decision, is today going to be a day that's going to elevate me, that's going to raise me up, that's going to make me a better person? Can I make sure that the decisions that I make today are going to be decisions that are going to bring me higher? Or decisions that are going to start to flush me down the toilet? Split-second decision. There are people sitting in this room who have made split-second decisions, moment decisions, which have ultimately changed their lives. That's what Chazal say. Mitzvah goreres mitzvah. One mitzvah brings about another. What does that mean? It means that every decision a person makes, once you decide to do a mitzvah, now you get on a higher spiritual level, so all new set of mitzvahs are opened up to you, which you never could have conceived that would ever be open to you before. And avera goreres avera. You make one split-second decision the wrong way, it can cause the beginning of your life to head in the wrong direction. We are standing at the very, very beginning of a new Zman. We're standing in the month of Elul, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu asks us all to make that decision to improve. We're standing at the beginning of tremendous opportunity and potential. And we need to know, as we go into this beginning, every decision we make will have consequences. Every decision we'll make will determine who we are in a month or a year. I remember the decision that I had to make. After having taught for 5 years in one school, should I continue in what I was doing, or go out to something that I haven't even started yet. Difficult decision. I could never imagine in my wildest dreams that I'd be standing here 16 years later looking at what I'm looking at when I made that decision. Every decision a person makes decides what his future is going to be. When you're going to be adults and you're going to be married and have your own children, they're going to come home from yeshiva. And they're going to want to review something that they learned. Or you're going to want your kids to be serious about their davening. Or you're going to want your kids to be serious about their learning. The decisions that you make today and tomorrow and this week and next month and next year are going to determine what's it going to look like in 20 years. When your kids come home to you. Every decision has consequences. As we begin this man, I offer up the tefillah to the Ribono Shel Olam that I do every day, 3 times a day in my Shmona Esrei. I'm very close to an old Jew in Mea She'arim. I have the schus to go to Israel twice a year. And every time I'm there, I always stop by a sofer. The sofer, more than 30 years ago, who my grandfather went to buy my tefillin, who I have now gone to buy each of my sons' tefillin. And Bez Hashem, my 4th son becoming bar mitzvah in a year, I ordered the tefillin from him again. But more than the tefillin, this holy Jew, Rabbi Avraham Eisenbach, has given me so many beautiful pointers and directions in my own life. And he once said to me, Rabbi Yisrael, before you walk into the classroom every single day, when you put your hand on the doorknob of the classroom, you should utter a small prayer to the Ribono Shel Olam. God, please give me the wisdom to say the right words to the students. Please give me the ability to say the things that are going to lift them up, that are going to inspire them, that are going to challenge them to grow, to develop, to be better people. To grow in their learning, to grow in their avodas Hashem. I try to practice that. And here, as we all stand at the beginning of this man, I want to offer the following prayer up to the Ribono Shel Olam, whose presence is here in this room when we daven. It's a Beis Medrash, it's a Mikdash Ma'at, it's a small Beis HaMikdash. Please, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, give the Rabbanei HaYeshiva the wisdom to inspire the Talmidei HaYeshiva to be Ohavei Torah, Yirei Shamayim, Baalei Midos Tovos, Talmidei Chachamim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu should watch over the health of the Talmidim and the health of the families of our yeshiva. It should be a great year. It should be a successful year. It should be a ksiva v'chasima tova. All of us should get written in the merit of all the good decisions that we're going to start out the year with. We're all going to merit a ksiva v'chasima tova, a healthy year for us and for all of our families.